Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is, wow, what is this? This is our first Black Women Are Dope AF series, the first video or the first part of our series where we're going to be here weekly to give Black women inspiration on how dope they are or how dope we are by talking about Black women throughout history all over the world who have done amazing things, who have left a legacy for us, who have left inspiration for us so that we can tap into their wisdom and keep moving forward. I got the idea for this long ago, probably a couple of years ago, but all things in good time. But it really became solid last month in February 2025 in doing the ancestral activation, where we were here every day for the whole month, 28 days, talking about sharing, uplifting, venerating, and honoring ancestors who have fought for our liberation in whatever way, whether it's through their resistance, through like literal resistance, or through resistance in building economic resources and funding the other forms of resistance, all the way through to helping us to heal. So this really got solidified. If you want to, it was more like a message or an assignment, because my ancestors give me assignments and I bets follow through. So that's why we're here today, is to talk about and kick this off. And I want to say, yes, exactly. Happy Women's History Month. Dr. Belazaire, thank you for joining us again. Steadfast, always here with us, still sharp and still. So I thank you for always showing up to support me, us, this channel, Black women, all the things. So I appreciate you. So today we are talking about Mama. Oh, I didn't have her name up here, but Mama Cécile Fatiman. And if you go back, and I'll link it, I think I may have already linked it in the description. The video during Sacred Resistance of our ancestral activation, when we talked about the Haitian Revolution, it really dawned on me during that session that she was pivotal. I mean, I always knew that she was pivotal in the Haitian Revolution, but really understanding the impact, the fact that it was the only successful slave uprising or uprising of enslaved Africans, because I always want to be clear with the language. We are not slaves. We were not born slaves. Another people enslaved us and then called us slaves and called us less than human. So I want to be clear about who and what we are always. So as I use language that is not the language I want to use, I'm going to correct myself real time. If I don't, y'all do it for me in the comments, okay? Because it's important. But it was the only uprising of enslaved Africans that was successful on this planet ever. And it was unique for many reasons, but part of the reason it was unique was because of this woman. Now, um, this is a artist depiction of her. Obviously, we don't know exactly what she looked like. There were no photographs and no one drawing caricatures at the time, but this is a current day or a modern day artist rendition of what she may have looked like. But the idea that the sacred feminine, the divine feminine, that Black woman energy was pivotal in kicking off this revolution, I believe played a key part in why it was successful. But let's get into talking about and honoring this woman who has shown us what leadership can look like, what spiritual leadership can look like, and how we can apply it today. Before I do that, though, I'm just all off into it, getting into the message. Like, subscribe, and share this video. Make some comments. Let's make sure that other Black women can get access to this information, whether they knew it already and this is just a reminder, or it's new information, because we know that there's a lot that's being suppressed about who we are and the accomplishments that we've made. So let's make sure that the algorithm can pick this up and get it out. But also, let me tell you who I am. I am Barbara Ohuninifa, also known as Barbara Pamplin, if you look for some of my books out there on the interwebs. And I am an author, a coach, a speaker, and I really advocate for Black women. And my work, whether it's in the books, in YouTube channels, podcasts, my articles on Medium, basically the work that I do, especially when I'm coaching women, whether it's in groups or one-on-one, is about helping Black women to recognize that we are beautiful, the actual blueprint of beauty on this planet, and to recognize and remember that we are powerful, so powerful that we are actually feared, and we can help spark revolutions, and to be love and to pour love into ourselves so that as we give love to others, it's coming from the overflow and not depletion. That's critical because we've been conditioned to do it in reverse, to give love to everyone else in hopes of receiving it back. But we need to reverse that and give love to ourselves in real, tangible ways and in real, personal ways, so that as we give to others, which we always do, it's from the overflow. It's from the excess of love that flows from us, that will naturally flow from us when we've taken care of ourselves. So that's the work that I do. That's who I am. That's the life that I've led. That's the lessons that I've got the hard way, and what I'm here to share with others so everybody don't have to get it the hard way. So with that, let's get into it because my intros are long enough. So, Mama Cécile Fatiman, who was she? Well, as soon as I bring up my notes, she was born into slavery in Saint Domingue under French colonial rule, meaning, and Saint Domingue is what is now known as Haiti. And again, if you go back to that video that I've linked in the description, I go more in detail about the Haitian Revolution and the conditions of slavery there versus in the United States. And I don't want to rehash a lot of that, so I definitely suggest that you go back, but I will talk about it because it's part of her story. So I will touch on it here. But that brutal French colonial rule was basically the French went and took over a land that was not theirs. And then they went to Africa and stole people and then brought them to that land that was not theirs so that they could extract wealth from that land by using free labor and using the land that was not theirs and then taking all that wealth back to Europe. That's it in a nutshell what it was. And she was born in the late 18th century, and her mother was an enslaved African. We think she was from Dahomey, which is now modern day Benin, and her father was a Frenchman from Corsica, which is an island that was sometimes overtaken by Italian or sometimes by the French. But there's thought that he was the son of a King Theodore of Corsica, so he was a prince. But it's speculative, and I say speculative because it's hard to find the proof of it. But we also know that history has been purposely distorted. So if he was a prince, it could have very likely been removed from history so that things couldn't be traced back, and very direct reparations could not have been demanded. Just saying. Um, Now, she, along with her mother, were later sold to another enslaver and separated from her brothers. The brothers were taken away and she never saw them again. And this was a common tactic that was used to break up Black families all throughout this entire transatlantic slave trade and the practice of slavery. No matter where you were in the world, they intentionally did things, took actions to dismantle the families, to dismantle the support, and to separate us from who we were and separate us from each other. So none of this was just coincidence. It was all by design in order to create the conditions actually that we're in now. Now, Saint Domingue was the wealthiest colony of France. So, of all of the places that they colonized all over the world, this was where they were getting the greatest amount of wealth. They were extracting the greatest amount from this particular colony of theirs. So you could imagine how important that was. And again, in that other video, I talked more about how brutal the practice of slavery was there. I mean, it was brutal, period, everywhere that it was. But in that particular region, the way the French ruled that colony, they continuously were bringing in new enslaved Africans because they were killing them so quickly. That's the only way that I can say it without sanitizing it, and that may, have the algorithm may have a problem with the real talk, but we're here for the real talk, not just for the algorithm. So it was an extremely violent system of slavery. The sugarcane, the coffee plantations, it was unspeakable forced labor, dehumanization, brutality. I mean, it was all the most wretched things that you can think of with slavery. That's what was happening in Haiti, and that's part of what really drove the people to say we cannot do this anymore because it's going to be liberty or give me death. That wasn't necessarily their words, but it's a concept that applies here because they knew they were going to die. So if they was going to die, they might as well die fighting for their liberation. So that was the environment. That's what she was born into. And there's some speculation which makes sense that her mother was a voodoo or voodoo priestess, well, also called a mambo, and so that's where she learned it from. But she, Cécile Fatiman, was a voodoo priestess, and in being that and embodying that and understanding that she preserved that African spiritual tradition for her people, because just as it continued, the colonization process also meant stripping away religious practices, stripping away spiritual practices, because they understood that it gave us strength. And by holding on to that and preserving that, which in large part it seems that she learned it from her mother, which again, we've talked about this for even in Black History Month when we were doing the ancestral activation. As a mother is educated or knowledge or has a gift, that knowledge, that education is passed down to the children. And especially something like this, something like spirituality, she absolutely has to, she absolutely learned that and received that from her mother. Ashe, greetings, Ia. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you. Yes, 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 yes. Thank you. Um, okay, lost track of thought because I'm so happy y'all are here. Okay, and so yeah, her and her mother, they secretly preserved those spiritual traditions. And in Vodou, they preserved them by hiding them behind Catholicism, by hiding it behind what they were being taught and how they were being forced to, and the religious and spiritual practices that they were being forced to adopt from their enslavers, from their oppressors, from the French colonizers. So she was a spiritual leader, she was a guide, she was a healer, she was all the things for her community. And she kept that connection to her spirituality, to the spirits, and to the ancestors strong and alive for her people and for herself. So I still did not go and research how to say this French word. I had done it and then forgot it, but I think it's boys, Cayman. Anyway, there was a ceremony in this particular area of the forest in Haiti on August 14th, and that ceremony was a voodoo ceremony, and it was the spiritual and organizational launch of the Haitian Revolution. And as I mentioned in the video from the ancestral activation a couple of weeks ago, back in February, if you're watching this live or real time, and you can go and watch or listen to that. I go into more detail about the Haitian Revolution, but it dawned on me as I was talking and preparing for that, because I was talking about Duddy Bookman, who was the other co-lead for the ceremony. And it dawned on me, or I'll say my ancestors tapped me. They was like, sis, do you see what's happening here? As the only revolution of revolt of enslaved people that was successful on this planet ever, still to this day, it was led by a man and a woman, the sacred masculine and the divine feminine. I believe my people's telling me that that's part of what made it successful. The woman was not suppressed. Her voice, her spirituality, her power was not suppressed. It was right there, front and center, launching the thing. And as we'll go forward, we'll talk about Sis lived very, very long time. So she was powerful. She lived through the revolution. But being there and being the co-lead of that and kicking it off was a powerful act of resistance. First of all, even holding on to her spirituality was an act of resistance. And that gathering brought together enslaved Africans who spoke different languages, who had slightly different spiritual traditions, but they could see the commonality in them. And as she did what she did and being mounted or becoming possessed, and don't get afraid of that word, but understanding her people and understanding the energy that she was possessing, they understood that whether they spoke the same language or not. There was, there was commitments that were made. She got again mounted by a deity by the name of Urzuli, and this particular deity in the Vodou pantheon is a goddess of love and protection, a fierce protector of women and children, and of motherhood. So she was there for all the things. And this particular deity, as she became mounted to give messages, and the whole ceremony was to ask for and receive ancestral protection and guidance, and spiritual and divine protection and guidance, so that as they fought for their freedom, they were fighting alongside energies alongside God. And they also looked at this, and part of the speech that Duddy Bookman made in the ceremony, he denounced the God of their oppressors. He denounced this God that said it's okay to do this to people, and claimed this God of love, joy, and justice. So that's what that whole ceremony that kicked off the Haitian Revolution, bringing in the sacred masculine and the divine feminine to start a revolution that was ordained and sanctioned by God and our ancestors. And I say our ancestors because they was taking people from all over West Africa. Things got blended. We don't know. Our cousins were all over the place. So powerful, powerful moment in history. And I say moment, it wasn't just a moment. It actually, the revolution lasted for over 10 years. But Cécile Fatiman was a key and influential part of that. And we thank her for her work and for her inspiration. And again, that leadership directly fueled the freedom that they were actually able to achieve. Again, it lasted over a decade. And here's what's interesting, the part that she lived to be over 112 years old. She survived the revolution. Duddy Bookman didn't survive very long. They immediately captured him and thought that they would do some horrible things that would scare people. But because these people, our people, were spiritually fortified, and in that ceremony, when spirit comes down, in any of the African traditions, when spirit comes down and ancestors come down, they don't just come down for funsies. They come down to give you messages. They come down to give you warnings, to give you strategy, to help you see what you can't see that they can see. So trust and believe. They probably knew exactly what was going to happen, and when they saw it come to pass, it fired them up even more. It strengthened their resolve. So it did the opposite of what the French thought it would do. But her leadership was a part of that. And again, she lived to be 112 years old. So she survived the revolution and got to see a free Haiti. She got to experience and live in a free Haiti. She eventually married one of the generals from the Revolutionary Army, Jean-Louis Perrault, and he became the president of Haiti. So she lived a rich and full life. And again, think about how strong and protected, spiritually protected she must have been to be the woman, the feminine energy that kicked this off, survived it all to experience and be a part of the free Haiti. Dope. Dope AF. I'm gonna say dope AF for a little. Well, I've already started cussing. It's dope as fuck. That's who I is. I cuss. Algorithm got a problem with it. So what? We saying the things is what the title of the series is, because the whole point is for Black women to be able to see, Black women now, like y'all, to be able to see what other Black women have done in the past that they try to obscure and hide from us, so we can remember at a cellular level how dope we are, because we come from that. That's a reflection of who we are. Cécile Fatiman is a reflection of the potential and the realness that is within us. It may not even be just be potential. You may be already doing a damn thing. Let me not assume. But we give thanks to Cécile Fatiman for her work, for her life, for her contributions, and for who she is. So let's talk about a little bit about why she is dope as fuck, because that's what the series is. So let's clarify it, because I don't want there to be any misunderstanding about why she's so dope. So first of all, she was a spiritual warrior. She made spirituality something more. She made it something that, and let me make this, get myself out the way and make this a little bit bigger for y'all. She made this something more. She made this, while the colonizers tried to erase African spirituality, she made it, um, she made and used Vodou to ignite this uprising, the biggest and most and only successful uprising in history. And by doing so, she stood in defiance of the French. And she proved, along with all of the others in the Haitian Revolution, that Africans are not powerless. We were not some docile, thankful, enslaved creatures that were thankful that the Europeans had brought us out of our ignorance, thankful to be beasts of burden. No, we were more. We not. I won't even say we were more than that. We were not that at all. But by tapping into that spirituality, she was able to arm us. And she's also dope because she was a fearless Black woman leader at a time when women weren't expected to lead. She helped enslaved Africans reclaim their divine power and unity. She shattered that whole colonial narrative that Black women are powerless. And I say are because they thought it then, and it was a colonial narrative. I'm going to go back to this that I mentioned and we talked about in the Ancestral Activation series. There's this idea of suppressing Black women's voices, suppressing our leadership is not indigenous to us as African people. Even where it shows up in African people today, it is a function and a result of colonization. That is not our narrative, and one that we must reject if we are to truly become liberated. Black women are not powerless. So she lived in a world where enslaved women were seen as commodities, but she commanded spiritual and political power. She didn't ask for permission. She took her rightful place as a priestess, as a strategist, and as a warrior. She came to do the damn thing, and she did it. And her leadership was more than as a figurehead. It wasn't a figurehead at all. She did the work. She mounted, she received messages. She shared. And that ceremony and her role in it, it was military, it was psychological, and it was deeply strategic. The spiritual aspect of that union, that ceremony, was strategic. They knew they needed spirituality on their side, that they needed God on their sides. We needed it. And she survived long enough to see the impact of her rebellion. Again, how you gonna live to be 112 years old through all of that chaos? You have to be divinely protected. You have to have a purpose that is beyond and maybe have a higher than normal amount of divine spark within yourself. Again, being able to witness Haiti's independence and the birth of a free nation. We still trying to see a birth of a free nation now. I'm just saying. And then the other reason, another reason, and there are many, we just gonna give like the top four right here, and this is the last one I'll say. Reason that she is dope as fuck, because Black women are dope as fuck, and you are dope as fuck. Remember that. That's the point of all of this. She is proof. Everything that she did is proof that Black women are the backbone of resistance, leadership, and liberation. You can't do this without us. That's why it ain't worked the way it needs to work. You can't do it without us. Her story is a call to action. Never shrink, never doubt, never let the world erase your power. Enslaved women weren't victims, they were architects of resistance. And she's living, well, she's not living, but her actions are still alive. She's living proof of that. I'm gonna just say that. And we continue to lead movements, Black women, shape history, defy expectations, just like she did. She is dope as fuck because her legacy, her leadership demands that we now, in this day and age, reclaim our power, take up space, and refuse to be erased. And for that, we give thanks to her. We give thanks to her as an ancestral mother. So, what is the wisdom? Y'all know I always got to talk about the wisdom and what we do with it. Because information is one thing, but we need to act. What we talked about in the ancestral activation of when we talked about love, courage, action, in that order. You got to love yourself. You got to love others. You got to love God. Love is the foundation for all the things and gives you the ability to have courage and to think and to create strategy and to look forward and look at the possibilities and to have hope for the future so that you can act to bring that future forward, so that you can act to create that future for our descendants. Because I'm always saying we are the ancestors of the future. What you doing? And I don't say that to be critical, but it's a call to action, like for real, to remember this life that you're living is not just about your life in this lifetime until you are in the ground. It's about what you're leaving behind for future generations. Because as we can see, everything's on the table right now. What we do now matters. That's why we are here. One of my spiritual teachers that's here here with us now, Tyra Omalade, says has always taught that you are here for times such as this. So when we look at Cécile Fatiman and look at her wisdom and consider how we want to use it, that's a critical part of any discussion that we're going to have on this channel, in this what will be podcast. That's a critical part of this because we want the information, we want the history, we want to apply it. We want to keep it alive by moving it forward and applying it. So let's get into it. One of her pieces of wisdom is that spirituality is resistance. It's not just personal. Faith is not just personal. It can be revolutionary. Yes, take the time to meditate, to go within, do your inner work, heal your own traumas, heal your own things that you came here to heal, because we all came here to do something, to heal something, even though that's not your full purpose, but we all came here with that. So do that work. But know that it's also bigger. How can that spirituality, if nothing else, does it just fuel you, ground you, center you, so that you can go forward and do something for, and I say do something because action, inspired action. Faith without works is dead. So as you go forward and do that, and it's based on spirituality, which to me is the same thing as being based on love. It's synonymous. The deity that Cécile Fatiman was mounted with, Urzuli, being a goddess of love, protection, and motherhood, you could look at that as she was the angel of God's love. These deities in African spiritual traditions, whichever one it is, you can look at them if you want to equate it to what most people are more familiar with is the concept of angels. There's still one God, there's one deity, there's one supreme being or supreme God. But these emissaries, these lesser gods, these deities, these forces of nature, you can look at them as angels. And the one that Cécile Fatiman was mounted with was one of love, and using that love to resist and to know what was happening to them was not right and was not God's will. So, with that being the wisdom that spirituality is resistance and not spirituality is not capitalism. That's another area where we have, as a people, have adopted our colonizers' view and our colonizers' ways. That needs to let go. Now, that does not mean that we are to be without or in lack. Those are lessons I've had to learn the hard way, my damn self. But the how and the what does not, it is not to look like what has been shown to us by our oppressors. So, how do we apply this wisdom and use it? Reclaim your spiritual identity, whatever that means. That does not mean throw away your Christian church if that is what the spiritual tradition that you follow, but to look deeper and look beyond simply what the pastor says to you on a Sunday morning. Explore, read, dive into it yourself. Understand that the roots of true Christianity is actually African. Go beyond what you're hearing from the pastor. Go beyond these superstitions and the limiting beliefs that keep you trapped and away from things that are indigenous and away from things that are literally the tools that our ancestors used to free us, even in this country. They worked the Bible, they worked the prayers, they worked the Psalms, but they also worked the land and they worked the herbs and they created things to protect us and to heal us that were beyond what was in the church. Reclaim your whole spiritual identity and know that a part of colonization included our religious practices, our spiritual practices. Reclaim it. They demonized most, if not all, of what we did, while on the back end, they was kind of using it, keeping it from us, but leveraging it for themselves. Reclaim your shit. Whether it's the rituals, the prayer, meditation, honoring your ancestors, especially honoring the ancestors, and seeking wisdom from elders. There's so much information available to us now in this age of the Aquarius age. Tap into it. Tap into the critical thinking, which again we talked about in the ancestral activation. Go a little bit deeper. Don't keep things at the surface level. It is, yes, you need to feel good. You need to focus and center joy, but you also need to know what's up. Claim your shit. So the other wisdom that she leaves for us is that leadership can take many forms. You don't have to be in the spotlight to actually spark change. So there's kind of this idea like you got to be the head one in charge. If you cannot, you don't run an organization or you're not running for office, that you have no leadership. Leadership comes at all levels. Leadership could be on your block. Leadership could be in your family, your nuclear family, your broader family. Leadership takes all forms. And she showed us that she didn't lead the army. She wasn't picking up the swords. Now, next week, we will talk about a sister that picked up the swords in this same battle. So while we had Cécile Fatiman, like, all right, y'all gonna get the war part. I'm gonna do the spiritual part. I'm gonna hold it down for y'all over here. We had a sister that actually did pick up the sword and she was fighting along with the men. We'll talk about her next week. But Cécile Fatiman led with spirit, community, and wisdom. She led in the way that she needed to lead, that her gifts and talents told her to lead. And that's the wisdom that she leaves for us, in that we can do the same thing. And we are often and almost always the backbone of any movement anyways, whether we're front and center or not. And your power could come through mentoring, through storytelling, healing work, entrepreneurship. Hell, you could make sandwiches for people that's going to protest. Pack up sandwiches and water. I mean, I'm sure that's probably what they was doing in the 60s, but the point is you can do a thing and do the thing that you need to do the thing and how you need to do it. And as I was just going on, I was that this pretty much is the wisdom, and this is the medicine, and how you apply it, how you take action into it is by stepping into your own leadership. Take up space, be visible. Nobody needs to give you permission. Do you know how many times I've had to tell myself that? I don't need to wait for somebody to tell me it's okay to do the thing. Freaking do it. That's what other people do. That's what the mediocre white men do. They just do it. The one of the phrases is, take the action and don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness later. They don't even ask for forgiveness. Take up space and step into your leadership in whatever way is natural and meaningful for you. Do the thing. Build sisterhood, create community, uplift each other. I hope that this series is the first of this series is able to do that for you, because I want all Black women standing in their power in whatever way that means for them. That's part of the medicine. And then The final piece of wisdom that I'll highlight from her is that collective action is the path for liberation or the path to liberation. We are stronger together. None of what they did in the Haitian Revolution would have worked, and none of the what she did would have worked had it just been her doing it or had just been, a couple of individual people doing it. Especially when I look at the spiritual kickoff of this revolution with Duty Bookman and Cécile Fatiman, it had to be both of them. It had to be the sacred masculine and the divine feminine to balance it out, to truly call forth all of the energies that they needed from the cosmos, from the ancestors, up from the earth. They needed both. You can't birth anything. You cannot birth a human without both. Very few species, and there are some species on the planet that, don't need uh, a binary system in order to create life, but we ain't one of them. By and large, the universe works in this duality to create form, a masculine and a feminine to create form, especially when you're talking about spiritual things. It had to be collective, it had to be balanced. The collective started with the two of them, and then by all of those who fought for over 10 years for their freedom. It had to be collective. Now, we might have a little hard time doing that in this day and age, but we have the wisdom. She said what she said, and how we do it is that we can support each other. We can amplify Black women's stories. We can amplify Black women's voices. And I specifically say Black women because that is the voice and the power that's been missing from the movement, at least in the United States. And I would argue in the diaspora in general. And I only say I would argue because I was not born and raised in other parts of the diaspora, but educated enough to know it's the same thing. We're going through the same thing. So looking at that idea of collective action and amplify voices and amplify Black women's voices is part of how we leverage and put to use Cécile Fatiman's wisdom. We come together. We support each other. At some point in the cool of the night, like my mama used to say, when she had a conversation she needed to have with one of us, had that conversation in the cool of the night. At some point, we're going to have a conversation in the cool of the night amongst Black women only. I might do that on my private platform. So if you have my book, Remember Who the Fuck You Are, it includes um, access to a private online community for Black women. And I check to make sure you're a Black woman. It might be a conversation we have over there, but cool of the night conversation, we got to get into it around this underlying energy that exists sometimes amongst Black women of competition that keeps us from supporting each other, that keeps us in a state of that can keep us. It doesn't always, that can keep us from truly tapping into a concept of sisterhood the way we could, the way that's necessary. Anyway, that's a cooler than night conversation. Everybody don't need to be invited to that, but I want to drop that seed because that's a part of the collective action, wisdom from Cécile Fatiman. We got to work together. Black women got to work together. Black people got to work together. Humanity got to work together to deal with what's happening in the world. But, you know, there's layers to the thing. And so when we think about all of these pieces of wisdom, we want to give thanks to Cécile Fatiman and the overarching Black women are dope as fuck message is that Black women are powerful beyond measure. You don't even know how much power you got. Maybe you know you powerful, but there's even more. Because the things that Black women have done throughout history are mind-boggling. And they did all these things that they have done, and we'll talk more about it. We talked some about it in the ancestral activation. We'll talk more about it as we go forward with this Black Women Are Dope as Fuck weekly series. The things that we have done, we did all of that, and we're having babies, and we're raising children, creating future generations. Can't tell me God ain't a Black woman. I'm just saying. So again, Black women are powerful beyond measure. Our voices, our stories, our spirits Hell, our bodies are sacred and they are forces of change. We are forces of change. Our bodies are sacred not only because, and the body of any um, woman with any woman or person with a uterus, because I want to be respectful and inclusive of all genders across the spectrum. The ability to produce another life is sacred and must be honored. And the ability, like Cécile Fatiman, to embody a divinity. We all have our own divinity, our individualized divinity. And in the spiritual tradition called Ep1, it's called your Ori. But to be able to also embody some broader force of nature, some broader, bigger um, spiritual entity, divinity. Don't get afraid of the word spiritual entity. It's not, we're not talking about demonic. That's a whole other thing and situation of people fucking around with stuff that they don't need to be. We're talking about a pure energy and light. To be able to embody that is sacred. Not everyone can do that. And I'm not saying only Black women can do it, but can't nobody do it like we can do it. I'm just saying. It's sacred. We're sacred. Our voices, our stories, our contributions, our bodies, our minds, sacred, powerful forces of change or for change. And if there's one message I want Black women to walk away from our talk today is that we are worthy of reclaiming our beauty, remembering it, remembering that we are the blueprint for beauty, despite what lies they keep telling us while they run to the surgeon and to the tanning salon to be us. Reclaiming our beauty, reclaiming our power, the things that we have done that we, as I just mentioned, and doing so while having and raising children and oftentimes raising their children. The power is unmatched and our capacity to love is unmatched. The way people will talk, there was one, I think, a East Indian man on social media that was going around talking about how his mother taught him as he went out into the world that he ever needed help to find a Black woman. Now, I don't know about all of that. Like, are you actually helping Black women while you telling your son to go to, receive from a Black woman? And that's just another example of people come to us and we give, but there is no return back in most cases. So this is where we have to shift and give that love to ourselves, fill our own cups. Remember who the fuck we are and that Black women are dope as fuck. I cuss a lot. And embody all of that. The beautiful, powerful love. Every word of everything that I say in these talks, in my books, are for a purpose. These words are with intention because they were given to me with intention to get me on track and to pull me up and help me to remember. And so I hope that's helpful for you. I hope it inspires you. I hope it helps you um, to have some action plans and take some steps on how you want to go forward and how you want to remember your dopeness. Because listen, you are dope. First of all, you here. You chose to be here and you stayed here despite the all. We ain't even gonna mention it. But despite all of that, you chose to be here and you stayed here. And for that we are thankful. We are thankful. Because we're gonna need all of us. We need all of us now, including you. So know that as we say, Black women are dope as fuck. You are a Black woman and you are dope as fuck. And with that, like, subscribe, share, comment, do all the things. And I will see you here next week. And until then, as always, take good care of you. Peace, y'all.